Hey guys, it's Nikki here. I'm here today to do the romance book tag. I'm doing a bunch of romance themed stuff in May, oddly enough, because it is my first wedding anniversary this month, so I'm doing some fun romance videos to kind of honor my husband and I guess. I don't remember the name of who started this. It was a Twitter link that I will include in the description below. And I'm sorry already for the link, because this is a long one, boys, but I'll try to be quick. Question 1. What is the first romance you remember reading? And I remember reading this one because I started way too young, but it's called Daughter on His Doorstep. It was a Harlequin silhouette romance or whatever, and it was about this guy who falls in love with the woman he hires to help him nanny his daughter because he's single, he doesn't know what's up. It's just the way it is. And she has 2 daughters, and they become this loving, happy family. Very sweet, very cute, very detailed sex scenes that I should not have been reading at the age I read it at, which was like 12. I don't know how I slipped that one past my parents, but I did. Question 2, what is the last romance you read? I haven't actually read any like true romance really at all this year so far. The last one that counts as romance that I've read is Your Name, volumes 1 through 3, by Makoto Shinkai. It's a YA romance with like sci-fi / magical realism elements. Super cute. Graphic novel was really fun. Movie was really cute. Highly recommend. Question 3. What is a romance book that you would recommend to a new romance reader? I have 2 different ones. One I suggested, I believe it's called Mystique. I think it's by Amanda Quick. Or is it Julie Garwood? I can't remember the author now. However, it's about this like magical stone, and the main female character is just really intelligent and vibrant and very self-possessed. And she comes to butts heads with a man who is the same, and it's kind of nice watching them fall in love. They both have their own struggles, but they learn to work through them, and they learn to be better people because of the other, which is always fun. The other one I would recommend is something a little bit more modern. It's called Well Played by Jen Deluca. It is the second book in the Well Met series. However, you can read it kind of as a standalone. I read it without having read the first one, without even knowing it was the second in a series, and I enjoyed it really well. Had a really, again, just a very self-possessed main character who fell in love with somebody who is just different in their own way. They're both really getting to know themselves and kind of decide what they deserve and decide what they want out of love and life. And it was just very sweet, very cute, and incredibly charming. Question 4. What romance are you most likely to recommend to another romance reader? I don't have an answer for this one because it really depends on the person. Because there's some that are like really raunchy that are kind of interesting. There's some that are very sweet and romantic, like Pride and Prejudice, where there's just no sexual overtones. It's just learning to love. And so like for me, it's too broad to really recommend one thing. It's called a cop-out answer because I tried to do this for 3 days straight, this script, and I couldn't come up with something. Question 5. What is an underrated romance that you wish more people would read? The one I thought of was Love in the Afternoon by Lisa Kleypas. It's about the youngest of a series of sisters, where each book tells a story of them falling in love and their version of happily ever after. And this, like I said, this is the youngest girl. She falls in love with a soldier, and their story is him learning to love, recovering from the war, learning to live with PTSD, and her recognizing who she is and becoming more self-possessed because of it, and not more self-possessed, more confident in herself because of it. Is, again, very sweet, very charming, and some pretty well-described sex scenes. 6. An overrated romance you wish people would stop talking about. I guess the one I would say, I don't know how many people are necessarily talking about the book, but it's The Duke and I by Julia Quinn. It's the book that first season of the Bridgertons was based off of. And at least in my opinion, it was like the least strong of all the books. I don't understand the hype, I guess, because I've read the book and it's not that good. Auto-buy romance author. For me, this would be Hannah Howell. If you guys watched my book of the month back, I think it was November last year, I reviewed one of her books. They do a series with this really vast extended family. I love the connection between each book and how and even though each story is very formulaic, I love that the women are typically strong, the men typically soft underneath, but they just don't know how to express it because they've been trained to be warriors all their lives. And to top it all off, it's like feudal Scotland, which for whatever reason is one of my favorite historical romance settings. Question 8 is an author you used to love who you've since abandoned. For me, this would be Stephanie Lawrence. I read one, series of 4 books by her that I really enjoyed. I tried a couple others, couldn't get into them, and just stopped. My husband's standing sadly at the end of my hallway because I asked him to grab a book for another video because I'm going to try to batch film, and I don't think he can find it.
There's too many books.
Question 9 is your favorite trope. One that I particularly like, and it's like, I can't fall in love with you because I'm doing something on a mission, trying to complete a specific task, dedicating myself to work, something, and I can't admit I need help. It just leads to a lot of fun events, and there's always a little bit of bumping of heads that just can be really fiery. Question 10, what is the best book with your favorite trope? My favorite of this is Ransom by Julie Garwood, ignoring the huge age gap because every time I read it, I think they're much closer in age, and then I actually do the math and it scares me. So ignoring the age gap, that story, because the main character, Jillian, is just she does good and is super kind and a complete sweetheart, and I love her. 11, a book you didn't like even though it had your favorite trope. And I have a bunch in here and they're just crossed out. I'll go with the 2. One is 5 Feet Apart by Rachel Lippincott. That's the one where they have cystic fibrosis, I think it is. Something with the lungs. And part of the main girl character is I can't fall in love. I have all these things to do. She has a blog. She's trying to make an app to do something with medicine. And it was just, I couldn't stand it. And then the other one is The Fountains of Silence. Same kind of idea, I think. I don't actually even know if that one fits. It was by Ruta Sepetys. I just didn't care for this one. I can't give you a solid reason why. 12, my most hated trope. This, with no exception, well, almost no exception, is love triangles. I hate them with a burning passion, and I cannot tell you the last one I remember reading that I enjoyed. That being said, I did think of one. It's more historical fiction than romance, so I don't know if it really counts, but it's The Dollhouse by Fiona Davis. The main character is in a love triangle. The main character in the historical perspective is in a love triangle, sort of, and it's the only time it's been done well, and even then I hated that part of the story. The trope is the only thing that detracted from my enjoyment of that story. 14, my problematic fave. I actually had to look this up to see which ones people were kind of getting really the most up in arms about. I don't keep track of that as much as I should. And one that came up that I haven't even read in a long time, so I couldn't even tell you if it's a favorite of mine anymore, but I loved it in high school, and that is Jane Eyre. Super problematic now, and as an adult I recognize it, but I truly don't know if the rest of the book would hold my attention the way it did when I initially read it. So again, this is kind of a cop-out answer, but I truly don't know. And 15, a book everyone else loved that has you scratching your head. Very rarely do I read a book where I'm I don't understand why people like this. And even this, to some extent, I personally did not enjoy it, but I totally understand why so many other people do. So it's it doesn't really fit, but I could only come up with books that I didn't like that I know other people love. And that I could see why people loved it. So My answer for this one is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey Mcquiston. There was a lot I really enjoyed about that book, but in the end, it just like super missed the mark for me. I felt like they were trying to do way too much, and it just did not sit well with me for no reason other than I didn't care for it. All right, I powered through the first 15 questions there. I have 10 more to go. Had to start a new clip because my camera's weird. 16, your favorite romance Slandia person to follow on Twitter. I follow nobody in that category on Twitter. I didn't know it existed. I don't use Twitter. I have one, and I've attached it to my channel here, but I don't use it regularly enough for it to count. 17, a place or person you go for recommendations or reviews. I go to a lot of people, but for romance, I actually took a lot of recommendations from Haley in Bookland. Her channel has a lot. She went through a period where she did a lot of like contemporary light romances, and sometimes those are just what I need to hit the spot as a palate cleanser. And so I usually go watch her videos for that. She hasn't done as many romance recently, but that's where I go for them. And then next 18, a book that has a character that reminds you of yourself. This one I left blank because I don't really do that when I'm reading anymore. I'm never like, oh, I would want to be this person. I think this person is like me. I let myself enjoy the story that the author's trying to write rather than trying to insert myself into it, I guess. And I'm not saying it's wrong to do that. It's the way I read. So I couldn't come up with anybody because, let's face it, I'm very boring and bland. 19, a romance cover that you love. I'll pop this one up on screen if I remember to when I'm editing. It's called I'm Still Here by Clélie Avi. It's French. I'm not great with French. And it was translated to English by Lucy Foster. It's just a very beautiful, simplistic book. Very short, very cute, tons of insta love, but just very, very well done. And in terms of the people how the characters were written. 20, a book you've reread more than twice. This is going to be Pride and Prejudice. I have a bunch of other like short romance novels that I've read multiple times over the years, but I think Pride and Prejudice by far outweighs them all in terms of number of rereads. 21, best romance audiobook. Again, this is technically like historical fiction and then has a romance element, and that's The Lovely War by Julie Berry. I just thought the characters were very sweet and very kind and very loving, and it was just very well done, and I really enjoyed my read through of it, and the narrator was amazing. 22, best romance / rom-com movie. I don't have anything here either. I didn't have answers for 3 questions. I feel like I failed, but the thing is, I like a lot of them. They're not my go-to movie. Like, I try to think about all the movies that I watch with my mom where we cry, but they're all like family dramas, not romance dramas. So I couldn't tell you. 23, favorite heroine. For me, this is Stacy from Well Played by Jen Deluca, which is one of the books I recommended earlier on in this video. 24 is my favorite hero. I said it was Fitzwilliam Darcy from Pride and Prejudice because there's something about him, like the tall, imposing, and then like weirdly awkward parts of him that make me think of my husband. And it could just be how he's portrayed in the movies that makes me think of it that way. But yeah, socially awkward, but like still kind of adorable about it. Yeah, it's my husband in a nutshell. Hence why I like Fitzwilliam Darcy. I mean, my husband's a little bit less pompous and nowhere near as rich, let's be real. And then 25, the final prompt. Told you I'd try to get through this quickly. Is your all-time favorite romance? And that is very, I want to say obviously, but I don't know if it's obvious. It's Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. It's sweet and charming and heartwarming, and it's a book I go back to every single time. I really love it. Again, if you're interested, I'll include the prompts and the link below for who did the original prompts, and I will see you guys in the next video. Just before I sign off completely, let me know below what any of your favorite romances are, any romances you'd recommend to me based on kind of the books I talked about here. I'm always down for recommendations, and I will see you then in the next video. Peace.